Coming to you from the Loading Ready Run orbiting underground moon base, it's the LRRcast.
And other paradoxes.
Doop, doop. Hey, it's not a paradox.
Explained.
It totally works. There are diagrams.
Yeah, the opening of the podcast, or the video version of the podcast, is a diagram explaining
how it can be both orbiting and underground.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but
there's actually there's two possible explanations, right? Like it could be either.
This is the one that amused us the most.
Right. So it's whether, I mean, both of them involves something orbiting inside a planet, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could have something that was both orbiting the Earth and also inside the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I liked the theory that it was there's the moon that we know, Luna,
right,
is the supermoon, and then there's a sub-moon.
There's a mini-moon
inside the planet, which is really just a shell, and then we are orbiting the sub-moon.
Yeah,
that's cray.
Yeah,
and
it's not cray.
Yeah, and that explains why you might hear some construction noises.
Yeah,
because
I think these mics are good enough that you won't pick up a lot of it.
No, I don't think.
But they are constructing an entire building next door.
Yeah.
Well,
luckily it's on that side of the building, which is far away. Not that you have any
moon neighbors
concept of where this all actually is. But
yeah.
Anyway, today we're going to tell you about we've already told you about what times that we've injured ourselves, or problems with maybe not injuring ourselves, but problems with our own personal injuries.
Not injuring ourselves, but issues we had involving injury.
Well, us getting hurt, not necessarily doing it to ourselves.
Right, right.
Today's stories, on some level, hurt more.
Yeah.
Technical problems.
Yeah. Right. This is technological pain.
Yeah. I can start with a 1-2 punch, though it took a couple years for the second hit to land. So when we started editing Strip Search,
right,
we shot it in December of
this was
2012.
I think so. This would be 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
we shot it in December 2012, and I bought a new computer that month, so I would have a new iMac for editing.
Yeah.
For editing it, and then in January, like right after I was starting to really get into the preliminary editing for it, it just failed.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
this was like because the idea with Strip Search was to do like a bunch before it actually went live.
Yeah.
So have a nice little backlog, and this was about like 3 weeks before it was supposed to launch.
No, well, I don't know. This was certainly 3 weeks into it. Like this delayed the launch for sure. Like there were two like major factors that just like knocked us out. That basically made us lose like a week and a half of work each. One was the hard drive failure. One was actually our cat dying. That sucked. That's not a technical problem. That just really sucked. But yeah. So this like. It didn't just delay the work, but there was also like work lost because the thing just stopped working. We're like, oh god, it's the hard drive, crap, all that data. Because it's not like I don't keep backups, but I don't back it up every day because you don't expect that a new computer is going to fail.
Right.
And so it's copy some work files on.
Yeah, the hard drive had literally been in use for like a month.
Yeah, exactly. So I take it to the shop. It turns out actually this one was solved fairly well. The hard drive was actually fine. There was nothing wrong with the hard drive. It had bad RAM.
And
there was. That's like the mythical, the not like the solution, but that's the. If your computer's acting really, really strange and there's no exact reason for it, bad RAM.
Yeah.
Bad RAM.
Well, it's because
RAM bring pain.
Because RAM is everything.
RAM
right?
messes up a lot of stuff.
Because RAM is. I mean, I've got stuff on my computer or on things that this thing where like I was going along with the computer for like 2 years. That was mostly fine. It just would like crash weirdly every once in a while. And it's that thing where it's like, doop-a-doo. Computer's going along, loading some stuff into memory, bringing some stuff out of memory. It's literally doing this, millions of
Constantly.
times a day.
Yeah.
And when the things it loads in and the things it pulls out start being different, it gets really confused. It's like, I could have sworn I left the location of that file right there in memory, and now it's gone.
It's just like, could
And-
you load my orange? Here's a banana.
Better shut it all.
Well, except the problem is because it's a computer, it's like, here's a banana, and the computer's like, okay. Tries to like
Tries to peel the
tries to peel the
It's like,
banana.
this is a really
like
weird looking orange.
peels and then tries to like divide the banana up into
up into orange segments.
orange segments, and then it crashes because it's like, I
can't.
don't know how to use a banana.
When did you
Don't
start
know.
using these long oranges?
Yeah, that's basically what when your computer gets like a blue screen.
Yeah.
It's the expected orange got banana error.
Or in OS 10, the gray screen of just like, "Brrrr."
Yeah,
That's
You're-
different,
you
but that's-
died.
That's also real bad.
That one's real bad.
I love they call it a kernel panic.
It's just like, computer broke. Well, it's great because, like, I don't know if any of you have seen this, and certainly Windows users have probably not seen this. When an OS 10 computer experiences like a really bad crash, it actually does a Venetian effect of gray
Yeah.
onto the screen, and then it pops up in about 5 languages. Your computer's fucked up. Restart.
Yeah.
Not that exact
It's
text,
like,
but
you need to restart.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
What's great too is it, on at least on certain Macs, especially iMacs and stuff, it, because it's crashed, it loses contact with the fan monitoring system because
Right.
it's
Oh, yeah.
because the processor isn't working anymore, and so as in an intelligent move, it turns all the fans up onto high because it can no longer tell
Right.
how hot the processor is and how hot. So it's like, I better be safe and turn the fans up high, which is a smart move. But if you don't expect it, what happens is you're sitting along working your thing, the screen goes gray, a message pops up in several different languages, and your computer suddenly gets way louder than it has ever been
it's like,
before. It's like,
it looks like it's going to take off.
yeah,
It's like launch sequence initiated.
not good, not good.
So anyway, this RAM, which was aftermarket RAM, this was not actually a fault of the iMac or
Womp
Apple. There was something wrong with it. Replaced it, and it was fine, and the work was not lost, but we did lose a bunch of time because I couldn't access those files. Anyway, as it turns out, of course, Strip Search still launched on time. We just didn't quite have the buffer that we'd hoped.
Yes.
NBD. But then more recently, only a couple weeks ago, and I talked about this a bit on Twitter, I did have a problem with the hard drive in that computer.
So it's the same computer.
Same computer.
Yeah, 3 years later.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, this computer, but no, it's just the first time it was just the RAM. This is the computer. So I have a weird hard drive in this one. It's an Apple style hard drive called a Fusion drive, and it's a fusion between a solid state drive and the classic hard disk drive. So it has a 120 gigabyte solid state drive, and then, because I paid extra for more storage because we do video stuff, a 3 terabyte hard disk drive. And they work in tandem in that the system and everything boots off the solid state drive. So the computer restarts and boots up really, really quickly, which is great. And all the system applications load really fast because it's reading off the solid state drive. And then there's this intelligence that keeps files that you've used more recently on the solid state drive so that you can access them more quickly. And then as you start to use different files, then it starts filing them. It starts moving them to the disk drive.
The idea is that you get sort of part of the advantages of most of the advantage of a solid state drive. But it's a lot
See,
cheaper.
that sounds really great on paper.
Yeah, and the thing is, it is, and it has been for 2 years, right? But the problem I discovered is that because everything is launching off. Because the system is launching off the solid-state drive, and because all your recent files are on the solid-state drive, and if you do a lot of your work on the cloud and the internet, or if you're just doing email and Google Drive and Twitter and everything, stuff that doesn't involve actually accessing your computer, you're only using the solid-state drive. So if the hard disk drive fails, You don't know right away. And so for a couple weeks, I noticed my computer just sort of like getting slower, just
Gurgling.
acting a little weird. And I was like, this is odd that it's acting kind of like this. I'll be like trying to do something in Safari and I'll just like click a different window and then everything will beach ball for like 20 seconds and then be fine again. That's strange. And then I
Pay attention to your computer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And so what I did is I was like, no, I think there's something wrong with my computer. I need to make sure that all the files on it are backed up because I had a backup previously that isn't around anymore. Hey, computer tech industry, I don't need your backup shaming. I know. I am acutely aware that I should be backing up my files.
Obviously, what you need is more backup shaming.
Apparently. It's like, I said this on Twitter, it's like when you go to the dentist and they're like, so have you been flossing? And it's like, you know I haven't. Mm-hmm. You're asking me that to make me feel like garbage. Mm-hmm. And I do. And when the computer tech is like, so do you have a backup? It's like... So anyway, there was not currently a backup for a bunch of stuff in this computer, including a bunch of source files and HD finals for Loading Ready Run videos, and that only existed on this drive. And so I was like, okay, I got to make sure I can back this up. So I got a hard drive and plugged it in and started copying files, and it would get like partway through a copy and be like, I can't read this file. I'm like, what do you mean you can't read? You've been copying the file for the past. What do you mean you can't read it? Okay, well, we'll try this file. Okay, that one went on. Okay, well, we'll try this file. And it's like, this 5 gig, this is the problem. It's like a 5 gigabyte video file. And it's like, gets to 60%. Oh, I can't read that file. Like, what do you mean you can't read it? It's right there. So I run disk utility, and it's like, there's a problem with your hard disk. You need to restart and run disk utility off the recovery partition. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so I did that, and it's like, no, we can't fix this. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And so I had to take it into the shop, and I was like, look, there's something wrong with my hard drive, and I don't know what the hell. And like, number one is getting the data off here because I went to go back it up, and it won't let me. And it turns out it's because the computer was getting worse because the disk drive had failed. like, I don't know. I actually don't know when it failed. At some point, probably 3 weeks prior.
Jeez.
Probably, like it had failed for a while. The local shop couldn't actually do anything because they're very, very good, but they're just computer repair, general sort of stuff. And they're like, this is beyond our ability. You need to take this to a recovery place. And there used to be one in Victoria called like Forensic Recovery or something. Mm-hmm. It's not there anymore.
So I had to go to Vancouver.
Had to send it to Vancouver. I got a discount because I got a referral from the place in town, so that was nice. Yeah, they were called Restore, as you would expect. And the one of the disk drive plates had a problem with it. And for those who are unclear on the interior structure of a hard disk drive, it's like a little tower of it's like a stack of pancakes.
It's got
silicon pancakes.
Four plates inside.
Yeah, and there was something wrong with one of the plates. I'm not entirely sure the exact specific, if it was unseated or something, but they had to, in a clean room, disassemble my hard drive.
I mean, it's one of these things where it's like the tolerances and stuff that are used in a hard drive these days, in these multi-terabyte hard drives are so ridiculously small.
Yeah.
That
because you're trying to get everything so tiny.
That just even like I remember the head that zips around doing. There's some analogy I heard at one point that I forget what the actual numbers were, but it's basically like as if you had a jet traveling along the surface of the Earth, like a foot above the surface of the Earth at supersonic speeds, and going around and avoiding all the like mountains and everything. Like that's the kind of they like, but miniaturized. But that's how fast this thing is moving relative to, and how such a minuscule bit it is above the actual, because it has to be so close. Well, for one thing, just for space concerns, but also in order to because when it's closer, that means it can read the data off the drive when the magnetization isn't as much,
Right.
which means they can have smaller magnetization things, which means they can have denser drives. So it's all
Appreciate your technology.
It's ridiculous
And
what they do.
and have a backup.
Have a backup. Have two.
As it turns out, it's also nice at this place. If they can't recover your data, they don't charge you, which is nice. But if they can recover your data, they charge you a lot, which is fair, right? It's like, well, otherwise this has all gone away forever, and it's tough for them to know, especially because of the way the Fusion drive works, because of the file structure is on one or other drive. And so the place in town, they were like, well, your solid state drive seems fine. There's no file structure, so it's just a massive list of files.
Right.
And I was like, oh, fuck. But when I got it back from this place, they got all the data off, put it on a new 3 terabyte drive, put that drive in the computer. I got my whole iMac back basically just like I'd sent it, except all the files read.
Cool.
It was because I know people are going to ask. It was $1,600,
Dag.
but there's files on there that were irreplaceable.
Yep.
So yeah, word to the wise, it's a lot cheaper to get just like even an external hard drive.
$100.
Copy some stuff onto it.
Yep.
Do it that
Do
way.
it right now. Pause this podcast.
Yeah.
Go
Back
get a
up
hard
this
drive.
podcast onto your new.
We did a video about that actually. The one with
We did.
Paul and Dale as the devil. And there's,
Yeah.
And it's like the computer's like, you have a backup, right? And Paul's like, oh yeah, I totally have a backup. And looks over and there's a sealed hard drive with like a post-it note being like,
To do backup.
To do backup drive. And he's like, damn it.
It's funny. I was talking about the ridiculous tolerances in hard drives.
Yeah.
That's because hard drives are so miniaturized now. You have the terabytes, whatever. I was thinking when we were talking about tech problems. My first computer. So my first computer was a Mac Plus.
Right. Oh wow.
Yeah, little 8-inch black and white screen.
Yeah.
And
Run like Ultra Key.
I had a sweet 20 megabyte
Whoa.
external SCSI hard drive for it.
20 megs.
20 megabyte. Yeah.
An external hard drive.
External hard drive.
20 megs.
Yeah.
How big was it?
That's like
It was about the size. It was about like.
Paul, that's like
big.
10 floppy disks.
Yeah.
I had an external hard drive once it was like 100. No, it was like 60 gigs.
It was
Except
about
the enclosure was like it made it like the size of a. It was like the size of a PS2 because the enclosure it had a fan. And
Man.
Anyway, sorry.
So, like, I never opened this thing up to know, like, I don't know whether the actual form factor of the hard drive inside it was the same as we have now. Because, that's part of the problem, right? Why they're all miniaturizing and stuff. Because they can't just add another platter to the hard drives to add more space. Because all hard drives have to fit into a specific thing. Because all computers are built to fit these drives. Right. So, it doesn't work. Anyway. So this drive, went along for a fine, and then it failed after a while. So this was a thing that happened back in the day. It would start making a noise. It would call.
It always starts with a noise.
But no, this was a thing. It was called howling, or you would get it. You would have a howling drive, and what that would be is the drive was fine, but the fan inside would start rubbing its bearings, and so it would go, woo, it would make kind of a noise. And you fixed it by turning the hard drive upside down, because then the fan would be over on the other side, and it would be really good. Problem solved.
That sounds exactly like how you used to fix old PS1s.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? This is back in the day. Technology, because the tolerances were a lot more forgiving. Some of the solutions were a little bit easier too. And so, but eventually, it did actually die. Like you click the button and it wouldn't start up. And so we were like, oh no, this is terrible. All our amazingly huge amount of data that was on this 20
my HyperCard
20
projects.
megabyte file. Hey, 20 megabytes.
You get a lot of HyperCard on there.
If it just, and also if you're talking like, you know,
if you're talking,
like school, like,
oh, yeah.
like essays and
No,
stuff,
you're effed.
you can fit a lot of stuff in there. And they're like, ah, crap. And, you know, sweet black and white video games and so forth.
This is reminding me
Load
of a very
Mind
short,
maze.
very peculiar anecdote when I was in elementary school. And we had a lab full of like Apple IIs or something.
Yep.
With like the green
Sounds
screen
like
or something.
something we
And one of them broke and wouldn't boot or something. And we called the teacher over. And he sort of looked at it and was like, And he placed his hand on the top and said, "Heal!" And it didn't work. And he was like, well, and walked away. And we're like, what just happened to us?
Well, that's all I'm out of ideas.
Just computer faith healing.
Anyway, so the deal was, though, it was we sort of like, we didn't take it into like a shop because we didn't really want to bother with, like, we didn't really bother with it, but we took it back to, we like took it into like where we got it from, which was, I think it was just like a friend of the family who was upgrading to a different computer,
Right.
and so we got the we got the old one for cheap, and his determination was that this head that goes by and thing had become stuck in the hard drive, and the hard drive a lot more bigger tolerances at that point, and he said, look, the hard drive seems to be dead, you can't do, but one thing you could try, and this is normally not something you want to do with a hard drive, but if the hard drive isn't working anyway,
Yeah.
bang it to unstick the head. And we're like, really? He's like, yeah. And so it did, and it shows, this is when we were small or when we were kids. It shows we actually ran the computer for quite a while. And that so you would turn the hard drive on, and once the hard drive was on, you would never turn it off, because if you turned it off, it would stop and the thing
get
would
stuck.
seize again.
Yeah.
But if it turned off for whatever reason, there's like a power failure or whatever, we would turn it on and then bang, 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 bang on the side.
Oh, percussive maintenance at its very best.
And it would start up.
No.
And
How long
then
did you operate like that?
a little while we copied things onto.
Man.
I mean, it took a while because this is a Mac Plus, which does not have a high density disk drive,
No.
which is the ones that have 1.4 megabytes on them. This is, but it does have a double density disk drive, so you can fit 800K onto a disk.
Okay.
So it took a while to back up this drive
Yeah.
to things, which we called when it came back, we called the hard drive Titanic, and we called each disc we had.
lifeboat.
Yeah, it was like, this is like the game's lifeboat, the work lifeboat, stuff.
That's good.
So
Wow.
Man, it's always nice when percussive maintenance actually works.
yeah.
When I used to work for Pacific Audio Works, there was a joke that was around. It was a baseball bat that had Sharpied on it, Behringer repair tool. Behringer, of course, being a make of speakers.
Right.
And I was like, ha! It probably actually works.
In some cases, yeah.
But sometimes, like, you can't be rough with technology, even stuff that's like built to last. Like, we used to have these what are called Socapex cables, which is like a huge like coaxial with like, I want to say like 18 pins on it, and it's used to run a variety of lighting equipment. And if you drop the head, which is very heavy, and you could nut yourself real bad with it, there's a chance that the welds inside one could come apart.
Oh no.
And I've seen them open. It is the most nightmarish thing, because you have like this octopus of heads coming out, and they all have to be perfectly aligned to like to form the tail. And if one of them comes off, you have to re-weld it and like take the whole thing apart, and just it's such a pain in the ass.
miserable.
It's awful.
So it's like if you're like working for like
Yeah, so like
if you're, like,
don't drop the head.
the low man on the totem pole and you drop the thing, everyone's like,
It's like, you better not have cracked that. It's like, because if one of these park ends doesn't light up, it's your fucking fault.
Didn't you say that you had an instance where percussive, it wasn't even maintenance, just percussion was a
Oh
problem.
god, yeah. Talking about the low tolerances reminds me of how I lost one of my computers. I had a brand new Mac Mini, and I was working on something. I don't even remember what it was. It might have been like InDesign or something, and a thing wasn't aligning properly, and I was like, and I did one of those like bonk on the desks. Dead computer.
Like you didn't even like.
Like I just sort of like I wasn't
You didn't
like
even, like,
boom.
hit the desk.
I was
You were
just
just
like just like
Like a,
shucks.
like a thigh slapper almost. It's
Dead
like, come
computer.
on the computer on the
It's
desk.
just like
And it was just the hard drive just went.
it was just like nope. It's like a record scratch. Like
Wow.
That's crazy.
I can't remember what happened. I needed a new one because like I think it was toast. And
Wow, that's
I
ridiculous.
feel like I got some of the data off, but it was just like it was so. I felt so stupid because I'd like borrowed money to buy this stupid thing and I needed it
Oh,
for work and just.
We're probably too late for this, but if you're listening to the podcast and considering writing a comment about how all our problems would be solved if we would just never use Apple products again, consider not writing that comment.
We would appreciate it because, well, I am certain there is an equal number of horror stories involved around Windows and Linux machines. Every computer system sucks.
This is why I never talk about technical problems on. I mean, the hard drive thing is different. I didn't specify the computer, but on Twitter, because you did this the other day, and you're like, how do you do X thing in Mac OS?
And somebody was like, install Windows. It's like
install
that.
Windows. It's like,
I hate that
thanks.
so much.
Thank you. That was super helpful. That's great.
really,
yeah.
really appreciate it.
It's A, super helpful,
Actually-
B, just like
Speaking of Windows stuff, actually.
Oh yeah,
So, fun story from today. Literally like an hour ago.
you're lucky you even have this podcast.
Yeah. So, the computer that we have recording this is the computer that used to be our streaming computer, but we upgraded our streaming computer and sort of shuffled things around. And one of the things we've been trying to do is get so we have. So there's 3 monitors hooked up to it. So there's the monitor that's actually on the computer. There's this monitor behind us, and there's also a preview monitor down here so we can see ourselves. You probably see us looking down at it.
That's helpful for, specifically we wanted that for Tap Tap Concede, so that we, on the panel here, know exactly when Paul has put a certain card up on screen.
Right.
And we can be like, no, that's not the right art from that common in the dark, because this is important.
And so, and for some reason, and so the graphics card we had for it has 3 monitor ports on it, HDMI, DVI, and a
VGA. Mini display port?
Yeah, DisplayPort. And so it was like, great, we'll hook this all up. But the card seems to be only able to actually run 2 monitors. It can run any of the 2 monitors you want, but you have to choose 2 of the 3.
Right.
You can't run all 3 at once. We're like, oh,
how'd you get the third one?
that's super crappy. And so I was looking into, what to do, because a lot of, or most Windows computers these days, the motherboard itself also has graphics capabilities.
Yeah.
And so I was looking into how can we have like the motherboard on the computer operate like one of the monitors and then have the graphics card operate the other ones and stuff. Turns out you can't really do that, at least not with our setup currently. But when I was investigating the monitor, or when investigating the motherboard, under the graphics capabilities of the motherboard, it was like, can run 3 high HD monitors. And I'm like, what? The built-in graphics card can do it, but the external one we have that is supposed to be better doesn't?
That's weird.
Okay, fine. Sure. Okay. But the problem is when you stick in an external graphics card, it automatically disables the internal one.
Right.
So it doesn't get confused. And so I'm like, that sucks. Well, what if I just disable the external one or the extra one that we added? Then it'll switch back over to the internal one. That would be fine. So I go. So I have a fair amount of experience with Windows, but it's not my primary thing. But I have used it a lot, and I have.
You have a certificate in applied systems.
Yeah, and I'm technically a Microsoft Windows 2000 certified professional.
Fantastic.
This is not running Windows 2000.
No, nothing runs Windows 2000.
No.
It was good.
Yeah.
And then XP came out and was better in every way. But Windows 2000 was a lot better than what was before it. Anyway, so So Windows has the device manager, and you can disable and re-enable devices in there, which is very useful in certain circumstances. And so I was like, okay, I'll go in here, disable the graphics card. As you might expect, boom, immediately all the screens go black because the graphics card is disabled.
Right.
That's fine. I expected that. Unplug it from the back of the computer, plug it into the other ports plug it into the internal,
Right.
the motherboard ports. Nothing.
Awkward.
I'm like, this isn't good. Tried a bunch of other ports.
Restart.
Try the stuff in the thing. Restart, and now it's booting up. Like I hear, like Microsoft is making, like Windows is making the noise, but Windows is like, well, you told me not to use that graphics card, so I guess I won't.
Computers are so linear.
It's the problem. The problem I realized is that Windows was like, well, you told me not to use that graphics card, so I won't. And the motherboard, which is at sort of a lower level, the
Right.
BIOS on the motherboard was like, I have an external graphics card, so I'm just going to turn off the internal one.
Oh my god, this computer bureaucracy.
Yeah. So it's
My
like,
job description.
yeah. So it's basically
Hey,
the
my
buck
problem.
got passed, and then fell off the end of a thing.
Just like do 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 do.
And so James was like sitting on the couch, and I was like, James, because he has a little more experience with Windows stuff. And we're like, okay. And so we actually ended up going out. We pulled off the side of the computer and actually pulled the external graphics card out, or pulled the separate graphics card out. And once that, then the BIOS was like, oh, or the motherboard was like, oh, I see, I don't have another graphics card. Boot it up in a sweet 640 by 480 mode, which I enjoy. I'm not saying like I enjoy that it booted up in 640 by 480 mode, just because it boots it up just to make sure. Because it doesn't know what the graphics card is, so it's like, okay, I'm just going to boot it into a mode where I know it'll be able to run. And so then we had to download the drivers for it and stuff. Which it amused me that when we went to the Asus website to download the drivers for the card, it detected us as a mobile browser. Because it was like, nobody could possibly be using 640 by 480 resolution on their computer. You must be a mobile phone.
It's really really good.
I'll redirect you to the mobile website.
Oh man.
So anyway, long story short, the graphics card that is supposed to be better, we pulled from the computer. It's no longer in the computer. We have three monitors running very happily off the internal graphics on the computer, which is supposed to be worse, but I guess is better in a certain way.
How about
And
that?
here we are.
Wait, when you said 640 by 480, it reminded me one of the first video projects, like real projects, not just messing around with a camera, but real projects I ever did was for our high school film festival. It was a video I made with Jeremy called Star Bowl. It was a parody. It was a parody of Star Trek where the crew were cows.
That's so random.
You may have heard of it mentioned at
Oh,
various
wow.
other times.
Yeah, except for Lieutenant Snorf, I think.
man.
He was a yak.
The precursor to After Hours.
Yeah. Well, there was another one in the middle there, but
Yeah.
Oh, wait, okay. What was the progression? There's
Starbolt,
Starbolt, Gloobs.
Gloobs, and then After Hours.
Okay. Wow.
And then never again.
So this would have been, let me see, 11,
This would be grade 10.
2009. This would be 2000, or not 2009, 99. I did the wrong because I graduated in 2002, and there wasn't one in my grade 12 year. We did
So
After Hours.
this is grade 9.
Did After Hours when I was in grade 11. Yeah, so this was when I was in grade 9. So I did all the. It was CG animation. I should point that out. It was 3D animation that I made in Strata Studio Pro because I'd watched there's a making of video on the Mist CD where they talk about how they made Mist, and they talk about this program Strata Studio. And my dad, because he did some amount of sort of design architecture-ish work, he happened to have that program on his computer. So I transferred it to my aqua blue iMac.
Because what's a CD key?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I could totally do animations in this. I mean, I could. Like they weren't.
Yeah.
It was not bad for someone in grade 8 in those days. Now you got Source Filmmaker and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But
Your kids these days.
so did the whole thing. We did the all the animations. Of course, the way that we did it in the time, because we didn't have any access to any sort of non-linear editing programs, so we didn't like. The way you would normally do animation is you would record the dialogue and then you would worry about syncing up like the action and lip flaps to the dialogue. We did not have that luxury, so we just knew what the characters would be saying and sort of figured out when their lips should be moving, when their mouths should be flapping open, and then expecting the people doing the voices to figure it out later.
Oh no.
I didn't think I thought you didn't have that much mouth movement in it.
Not really, no. Only some people, like most, because they're just sort of like there's not a lot of, there's very little mouth movement anyway, because they just have like a cow nose, and it's mostly just like, yeah, there's basically no actual lip movement, but I mean like for actions and stuff.
Right.
So, we did the animation. Like I had all the files on my computer at home. I had all the digital renders in 640 by 480, of course, because that was what the resolution to everything was.
Yeah.
Then, how do you get that into a form to be shown at a film festival?
Yeah,
Ooh.
it was really weird.
How do you get video off a computer in 1999?
Yeah, and like at the time, like it was weird at the time. Like I remember, it's like.
Yeah, how the hell do you do that?
Literally getting video from a computer to like a VHS tape or into a television
Yeah.
was actually quite a difficult thing to do.
Well, because your options are basically like, I need to dump this to VHS,
Right.
Or like run it off a camcorder or something.
And how do you dump it to VHS?
Yeah, it's like,
But it's like,
I'll tell you.
oh boy.
After some panic, because we realized that the film festival was the deadline was in 2 days, and we'd basically given up because there was no way that we could actually do it, because we found we could not do this. The school did not have the equipment to do this, but there was a guy in town who had a digital video editing setup that could dump to VCR. He had like some sort of weird scuzzy.
This was a weird thing to have.
Yeah.
Back in the
well,
day.
I mean, if you actually were a professional
no, but what I mean is
editor,
that like,
then that's something you would have. But it was a dedicated piece of hardware.
Yeah,
to do
this
it.
is a guy that was running like a video editing thing out of his garage.
Right.
yeah, I mean, whereas nowadays you probably could just like put it on an SD card, plug it right into a projector, and have
Yeah.
it run.
Well, it's also, I mean, the fact that now it's HDMI and for
Now
monitors
that
and for
everything's
television,
digital.
so it's
Yeah.
fine.
So we'd given up because this guy wanted $100, which is probably was giving us a
in
massive
1999 money.
discount.
It was
was
just
probably
like,
giving us a
whoa.
massive discount, and we're like, well, we can't do it. And so my dad was like, all right, I'll pay this. Let's go. And so we took our collection of zip discs.
Zip discs.
Yes, it was. They were like really, really thick floppy disks.
They held 100 megabytes.
200
What?
megs.
Yeah.
The ones I had
My
only
zip discs,
held
which I
100.
still have.
Yeah, there
And
were fancy ones that had 200.
I have a USB zip disk drive.
That's bonkers.
If you ever want to see what's on my old zip disks, this guy,
They
by the
probably
way,
don't work.
this guy blew my mind. The guy who actually had this VCR setup, he had a Jazz drive.
Oh, big
Yeah,
money.
Those are fancy.
Those things, the discs, they were about the size of a CD case, but the thickness of like 3 CD cases. Right? They were like really, really thick. They could hold a gig,
Like a gigabyte.
which is an insane
in,
amount.
in 99, that was like all the space in the universe.
Yeah,
They were like $100 each too.
yeah.
Those discs.
And so he, because we had all the individual files, we didn't have one big thing. We had the individual files. And so Jer had to stay, and I had to leave. Jer had to stay at this guy's place for like hours.
To tell them like what order they're supposed to go in.
And this guy, thank God, like he, good. I don't even remember this guy's name, but thank to him for sticking this out, getting it dumped to tape. And then Jared was able to then take the VHS tape from this guy, the master, and the cassette tape onto which we had recorded all of the dialogue with his tape deck that had RCA audio output and 2 VCRs and run the video from the master VHS and the audio from the cassette tape into a VCR and do the audio syncing that way.
Be grateful for your free copy of Sony Vegas.
Or iMovie.
Or iMovie.
This was...
We've gone through
Hell.
some shit.
Like iMovie, yeah, iMovie
This was all in the
like,
2 days before the festival deadline.
was a massive improvement. I mean, like I remember when like laptops and desktops first came out that had the like you could plug an adapter in and it would output like RCA audio or RCA video. I was like, holy crap, that's the
Man,
thing
that's like
now.
That's like when we shot Leon's Great Adventual and we didn't even edit it at all. We just shot it sequentially.
Yeah. Yep. That was the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd get a VCR camcorder, which is about like this big, and you put an actual VHS cassette into it, and you'd roll on it, and it had like titling functions where it'd just be like, right, in like the worst font imaginable.
And so you couldn't like redo it.
No,
or,
no.
Or
What's
if
a
you-
retake?
If you retake, do you just like
Yeah,
I guess
you
you could
wind
you
it back.
You rewind and
so
do
you
it
shoot,
again.
this scene, and then the next scene, and then the next scene, and then I think I did the 2 VCRs to get the music on, and I don't.
Yeah,
even,
the one VCR to another, and every time you do that, you go down in quality
Yeah.
too.
oh yeah,
In
in
for
glorious like 240p or something.
For those other videos I mentioned, in the subsequent years, I was able to transfer those myself because the physics lab at the high school, like the teacher's room where students are not supposed to go, where they stored like all the various weird shit that they need for doing the physics demonstrations in class, they had a unibody G3 Mac computer. It was like this weird. It was like almost like an iMac precursor.
Was that the one that was like the weird like dome and then the screen sticking out of it?
No, that was much more recent. This was like a it was almost like an iMac. Like it was a computer and monitor all in one thing, but it was this weird like it was like an educational model sort of thing. But
Yeah.
it had RCA ports
Whoa.
in the back of it.
Nice.
Like
That's a big deal.
The red, white, yellow that you would find in a VCR, and there was a computer had a copy of Avid, so I spent hours while they were in class because I had like spare blocks sitting in there arranging all the video
Excuse me.
files and then dumping to VCR myself, which I was thankfully able to do. But yeah,
That's I mean, I guess that's not necessarily like tech problems. That's more
the first one was
just dealing with old
the first one
old
was
technology.
Yeah,
Old tech is wow.
we've
It's so
gotten-
weird looking back on it, right?
we'd gotten so far along the process, and then we couldn't get anything to work.
I like it's basically the equivalent of the guy who like builds a boat in his garage and then finds out that the
boat's too big for the garage.
It's too big to get out of the garage. Like I like that you guys didn't actually think about that at any time during the
Nope.
process.
Yeah, that was.
It's like we'll just bring the iMac, put it on stage, and just play it.
Yeah,
Everyone-
just like put a
everyone-
magnifying glass
Everyone
on
lean
it.
in real close.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'll have to turn it up. The speakers aren't that good.
We'll play it on the screen, and then we'll videotape the screen, and then we'll dump that tape with
That's-
the dialogue and
I mean, the funny thing is that is literally how you do 16 or 35 millimeter.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
that's
that-
how you do it.
I know. I mean, it's a lot more formalized.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that's a
this-
special
what,
thing,
an
but it is
optical printer?
you is projecting it and then filming the projection.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Whatever works, right? Ugh.
Anyway,
I know there's others that I
Video-
have, but I can't think of as many others. I spilled Paul's chai tea latte on a keyboard recently.
Kim spilled hot chocolate on my laptop, and that was bad.
The keyboard recovered quite nicely. How was your laptop?
I don't think it was in good shape.
it's the problem.
I don't
the problem-
remember, though.
yeah. When you got a desktop and you spill something on the keyboard, it's like, oh crap, I might lose that keyboard. Problem with the laptop
And
is
you're like,
the computer is underneath the keyboard.
Yeah.
It's like
feel-
spilling your Coke on a Commodore 64 or something.
Jeez. That's real bad. They're just like, no, it's gonna seep into the motherboard. Oh no. Man, those. Sorry, you were talking about jazz drives, and I remembered the click of death.
Oh,
You remember that?
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that those kind of sucked, because it was like, oh man, a whole gigabyte. Wait, what do you mean it has like known hardware failure like
Yeah.
pretty
Very,
frequently?
very high.
oh,
Because like you would be running it and you'd hear tick, 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 and it's like you're fucked.
I worked with a zip drive one time that its ejection system was messed up in that it was too strong.
Sping!
Yeah. It would literally spit the disc out and it would fall. Like it would go. Psh.
That's. It's like, was it made by Mattel or something? It's like with hard drive shooting action.
wow.
Did either of you guys ever work with a really really early CD burner? Because my dad,
Where you had to be like careful not to jostle anything.
well,
many failures.
he used to work at Sanctuary Woods, which was like a interactive media
Sort of
something or other.
educational
Yeah,
games
they
and
did
stuff.
like edutainment games.
They made some of the Journeyman project.
Yeah.
Did
or
they?
at least published it.
Yeah,
Well,
because like
Sanctuary Wood, didn't they become Presto Studios?
No, I don't think that's how it worked. Presto was its own thing, but they may have had some sort of relationship. I don't remember. But
I know their name was at the
the
beginning.
way
I'm gonna look up
the
Sanctuary
way
Wood.
you used to do it is like the CD you'd put inside a caddy,
Oh,
just like a little enclosure, and then you'd slot that into the drive, and you'd set it to burn, and clear the room, and nobody was allowed to go near it because the slightest vibration would fuck up the burn.
Yeah. Everyone wearing socks.
It's just like if you walked too strongly near it, it's like, oh, do it again.
Yeah.
It's got to burn in like real time. What was like 1 times, maybe 2 times drive.
One of my friends had just a wall of his like dorm room, wallpapered in dead CD. Like,
Oh, yeah, coasters?
like bad burns. Like coasters. He would just whenever there was a coaster, he would like pin it to the wall.
We used to
So-
we call them coasters or frisbees.
Yeah.
So, Sanctuary Woods published Ripley's Believe It or Not, The Master of Lou.
Nice.
They published
I don't believe that.
Math Ace Jr.,
Okay.
The Journeyman Project, and The Journeyman Project 2 Buried in Time.
Oh.
Published though.
Yeah, they published. They only developed
Victor, Vector, and Yondo.
Victor, Vector, and Yondo. And a game called Orion Burger.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I seem to recall there was some weird thing where they were like their entire existence in Victoria was actually like a tax dodge or something.
Sorry, probably. But man, Orion Burger?
You remember it now?
Oh god, you're accessing some really, really old memories. I feel like you reach way down through all the trash and just pull out this one thing that you recognize. You're like, oh my god.
You reach down through all the trash and pick one piece of trash.
One piece of trash. It's like, you remember this one? It's like, my god, I do.
You talked about the clicking. There's the other like real bad hardware failure indication. When I was working for a startup company in town here as like a content creator, they were trying to really push this video platform that they had, and so they wanted interesting stuff for the video platform. So what they did is they sent myself and the other 2 guys from marketing. For those who are familiar with it, these are the guys that I did the Idiot Room with. They sent us up to Whistler, BC, which is typically a ski resort, but this was in the middle of summer, and what they do is they turn part of the ski hill into a dirt bike, like BMX motocross competition that they have this every year. It's called Crankworks. And they wanted us to just like make content at Crankworks. And so basically we were filming all day, and I was editing all night to get like live stuff out there. We had like a proto GoPro that we would like give to some riders and ride down the hill, and
Cool.
we'd like interview people and stuff. Like, I'm personally very pleased with like how much content I was able to generate over that period of time, and they basically didn't promote it or whatever. Anyway, that whole company it got weird at the end. Anyway,
Bonkers.
I do recall one of the videos possibly involving upper decking.
That was probably an episode of The Idiot Room.
Yes, I would
Yeah.
guess so.
No,
But
no,
that was
no.
filmed up at Whistler.
Yeah, probably. No. This was the Crankwork stuff was all legit.
Was covered.
Yeah. But we took a little like a router, I guess, so that we could because all of us had laptops because they needed internet for stuff as well. So we took that so that we could all use it because they had wired internet in the room. So we plug the cable in, get all our computers plugged in or whatever, turn the router on, and it goes,
Oh,
and then blue smoke
Nice.
comes out of it.
ooh,
Nice.
The
smoke
and
is always a good
it's
sign.
so thick. People who have seen this know what I'm talking about. The blue smoke is the magical substrate that causes technology to function.
that's what Puff the Magic Dragon exhales.
Yeah, and if the blue smoke escapes from the device,
Then-
it no longer works.
Yeah.
You need to keep the blue smoke contained within it.
Yeah.
Or
you
it
could try
won't
to
function.
like vacuum it up, but it won't work.
No.
It sounds like videos I've seen of people's like lithium battery in their laptops exploding.
But have you ever seen like the blue smoke?
No,
Like I say blue. It's like it's a very very thick, like completely opaque gray smoke with a
Blue tinge to it?
with a like noticeable blue tinge to it.
it's like 10%
And
cyan.
it basically pops from like when you fry a circuit board.
Yikes!
And because there's like air vents in this thing, it was like, psst, and then poof, it just like came out of all sides of this thing. And, yeah. And we're like, uh-oh.
Spaghetti.
And luckily there was like a computer store up there, so we just went and bought another one. But it was like, I've never seen one. I've never seen a router fail that spectacularly.
You went and just bought a blue smoke refill.
Yeah, exactly. Just squeeze it back in.
Yeah.
It's like a little caulking gun. You've got
Yeah, yeah.
God.
I've seen it happen.
Compressed air canister.
I've seen it happen on computers. One of my buddies I watch wrestling with, Rob. He for years his keychain was a like 2 gigahertz Asus chip.
Processor?
A processor that he fried trying to overclock it.
I mean, speaking of
It's like
frying,
a couple $100, I think.
this computer that I was talking about right now that is using our that I was talking about before that we used for streaming, and now we're doing this. We fried the power supply on it.
Sure as hell did. I don't know how we did that.
Yeah, the process that we went through to fry the power supply. Do not try this at home.
Unless you want to fry a power supply.
Although I don't know how you will avoid trying this at home.
Yeah.
Because the process we went through was we were switching it out for the other computer. So we turned it off, unplugged it, moved it to a new location, plugged it back in,
And it
power
blew-
supply was dead.
It was its time.
Like it didn't make any bzzzt or any blue smoke or anything. It just plugged it in, turned it on,
Wouldn't turn on.
nothing happens. And it's one of those things where like I mean for a while I was a professional computer tech. And I have got the Windows certification thing, which obviously isn't applicable anymore, but it was at one point. And I've done hardware stuff and software stuff, and I know my way around troubleshooting fixing computers. When the computer just doesn't turn on, like you've got there's this big like flow chart of
Yeah.
like things to check, reinstall, do this, check this. When the computer doesn't turn on, the flow chart becomes very short. It's just like, well,
So then
It just goes straight right to
a
shit's
diff-
broke.
It's like
so it was like
different cable.
Well, so it
that's-
was like, so it must be a problem with the power supply. So James brings in a power supply from a computer he had at home that he knows works.
Right.
Puts it in the computer, plugs it in, dead. It killed James's power supply too.
What?
Yeah.
we're like, what the hell is going on?
The curse.
So what was wrong with it?
Prophecy.
The power supply seemed like we took it to a repair place and they sorted the power supply and it worked fine. So I don't
just-
know, maybe James's power supply was messed up.
He said he knew it worked, but
That's
He
great.
lies a lot though.
that's true.
James lies all the time.
He is a monster.
I don't know.
Uh.
Anyway, it's just stuff happens, and power supplies are one of those things where it's like, because the power supply, of course, is all the power inside a computer is quite low voltage,
Yeah.
but obviously the power coming into the computer is 120. And the power supply is where that change happens. And so, like, when I did my computer hardware course, it's power supplies and monitors. They're like, you do not know how to fix a power supply or a monitor.
Yeah.
If it breaks, you buy a new one and replace it. You do not have anywhere near the qualifications to open up a power supply. And, well, monitors aren't so bad now. It used to be with CRTs, a monitor could kill you.
Yeah.
Because...
The capacitor.
Oh my god.
The
flyback transformer.
Yeah, well, a picture tube in a CRT monitor is essentially an enormous capacitor that will hold a charge, theoretically lethal charge, for weeks after the monitor has been unplugged. So don't open and mess with a CRT.
There's some things you don't want to.
LCD screens, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the power supply in a computer that's basically like the one place inside the computer where dangerous amounts of electricity are, because that's where they go. With the regular stuff inside the computer, you can break the computer real easy.
Oh, yeah.
But you won't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, they swapped out the power supply. Maybe who knows what the actual problem was in the power supply, but it seems to work okay now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Except for the whole graphic card thing, but I feel that's unrelated to the power supply.
Yeah. I think that's good for today.
I don't know. Yeah, the combination tech problems and reminiscing about old technology podcast.
Yeah. We should do more of that. We should do more of that.
Yeah, we should definitely revisit
Well,
that.
I'll get canes and just be like, "Rrr."
Time was a fella could fit a megabyte on a desk.
I mean,
I used to watch movies on vinyl.
I mean, it's especially like the
did,
reminiscing.
Actually, yes. Not even kidding.
Video disc.
The reminiscing about old technology. I mean, obviously, computer technology has changed a lot, but especially just in our particular small field,
there's a lot of weird
like
stuff.
video technology, like the change, and it was such a fast and to outward appearances, not that big a shift, but the change basically. I mean, there were people who did it before, but the iMac and with it iMovie was one of the big, changes that happened. And I mean, obviously, lots of other computers have similar systems now, but like literally with the release of these, consumer level editing software, you went from needing like something like a $25,000 machine dedicated only to editing to a $1,000 machine that can do all sorts of other stuff. Oh, and it also can do editing better than that machine that you. So anybody who had bought like a full editing suite was real unhappy.
I can do high def, like 1080p editing better and more easily on my phone than on the first computer I did editing on.
Yeah.
I have iMovie on my phone. I can edit. I don't, but because I have other things for that.
Yeah.
But I could edit HD video better on my phone than on my Aqua Blue iMac.
Times change.
But even that, and even the iMac was a huge
Or even
jump.
the Tangerine iMac that was a step up.
Yeah. Like before
The
that,
color
like,
made a
I made a
difference?
few movies that
It
would.
was a third generation.
I made a few movies with two VCRs. That deal.
Not good.
I've shot on 16 millimeter.
We
like-
talk about nonlinear editing,
Yeah.
which is just called editing now because nobody does linear editing, which is that's the recording, pausing and playing on a thing.
We were down at the secondhand store looking for props the other day, and in the wall where they have like random objects in bags. That's like, we don't know where to put this. We're going to put it in a bag and hang it on the wall. It was like
Human finger.
$2 for a digital 8 blank tape.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh, I remember when we used those.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that'll be it for today. I don't think there's going to be a part 2 for this one because the other folks didn't seem to have as many things to share as we
They
did.
weren't there, man.
So, but the LRRcast will be back next week. As with all of our podcasts and everything else that we do, basically, it's supported by you on this thing down here, our Patreon, patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. We're bowled over by the support so far. We recently hit the 10K monthly milestone, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's going to let us do even more fun stuff. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks.
Or watching, however you choose to enjoy it. Bye, everybody.